You ever wake up to the sound of metal scraping your driveway and think, oh great, it's HOA Karen again? Yeah, that's my life now. It's like living in a sitcom where the villain never gets written out of the script, just gets louder, nosier, and somehow gains access to a tow truck. My name's Ryan, and if there's one thing I've learned from living in this neighborhood, it's that power trips don't need a badge. They just need a clipboard and a bad haircut. That morning, I heard the roar of an engine, a clank of chains, and Karen's voice echoing through the fog like a banshee with a Bluetooth headset. "This vehicle is in violation," she yelled, waving her HOA rulebook like it was the Constitution. The thing is, it wasn't just any truck. It was my pride and joy, a 1978 Ford F-250 that my dad rebuilt by hand. The same truck we used to drive to fishing trips when I was a kid. And no, it wasn't abandoned commercial or eyesore material like she claimed. It was parked neatly on my driveway, shiny as a new penny. I stepped outside, coffee in hand, trying not to spill it out of pure disbelief. "Karen, what in the holy HOA handbook are you doing this time?" I asked, half asleep, but fully done with her nonsense. She puffed up her chest and gestured to the guy in a tow truck, a nervous-looking dude in his 30s, wearing a reflective vest, 2 sizes too big. "This vehicle is being impounded per community section for B," she announced like she was running for neighborhood dictator. "Section 4B. I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, that's the section about mailbox height." She froze, lips twitching. You could see the steam building behind her glasses. "It's still a violation," she barked. Then she turned to the tow driver. "Well, what are you waiting for? Hook it up." The driver hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure this is Karen?" Snapped her fingers. "Do you want to get paid or not?" That's when I noticed something odd. The truck didn't have a company logo, no license plate number, no paperwork in sight. Just a big, rusted flatbed that looked like it came straight from a junkyard. My instincts kicked in. I took out my phone and started recording. "Smile for the camera, Karen," I said, zooming in on her. I'd hate for the sheriff's office to miss this little morning show. Karen spun around like I'd just insulted her entire ancestry. "You can't record me. That's against HOA privacy rules." I smirked. "So is unauthorized towing. Let's see who breaks the bigger rule today." The tow driver looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. Ma'am, maybe we should leave." "Absolutely not," Karen snapped. "This truck is an eyesore." The board approved the removal. That's when my neighbor, Dan, peeked out from his porch, holding his cereal bowl like he was watching the neighborhood version of Judge Judy. "Hey, Karen," he shouted. "Didn't the board kick you off last month for faking signatures?" You could hear the air leave the scene like someone unplugged a balloon. Karen turned crimson. That's irrelevant," she stammered. "Not really," I said, leaning against my truck, "because if you're not a board member anymore, you don't have the authority to tow anything." She glared daggers at me. "Fine, the tow is still valid under the HOA's contract." I tilted my head. "Oh yeah, mind if I see that contract?" Her eyes flickered. "It's confidential." "Unhung," I said, dialing the sheriff's office. "Let's have someone official take a look." That got her attention fast. She started backpedaling, whispering something to the tow driver, who looked like he was about to cry. I didn't know it then, but that man wasn't just nervous. He was terrified. Because the truck wasn't registered to any towing company. It was registered under a name that didn't even exist. 5 minutes later, I heard the familiar sound of sirens. Karen's smug face twisted into panic mode as the sheriff's SUV pulled up. He stepped out. Big guy, mirrored sunglasses, the kind of presence that makes every guilty person suddenly forget how to breathe. "Morning, folks," he said calmly. "What's going on here?" Karen instantly pointed at me. "Officer, this man is in violation of multiple HOA ordinances. We're just enforcing the rules." The sheriff looked at me, then at the unmarked tow truck. "You got papers for this tow?" he asked. Karen gestured toward the driver, who fumbled through a plastic folder like a magician trying to find a rabbit that wasn't there. It's in the truck," he mumbled. The sheriff frowned. "Name of the company?" Liberty Towing," the guy muttered. The sheriff squinted. "Funny, that company's license was suspended 2 years ago for fraud." Karen's face went white. The driver froze completely. I just stood there, sipping my coffee, like it was the most entertaining show on earth. "Ma'am," the sheriff said slowly, "how exactly did you find this tow company?" Karen straightened her sweater and stammered. It was a referral from the board." "From what board?" the sheriff asked. "Because, according to county records, you're not listed as an HOA officer." The silence that followed could have powered the entire neighborhood's Christmas lights. Karen blinked rapidly, realizing her empire of control was starting to crumble in real time. And that's when the sheriff turned to the driver and said the words that made my entire week. "Sir, step out of the vehicle. We're going to need to verify your license." Karen tried to interject, but the sheriff raised his hand. "And ma'am, I'd appreciate it if you stayed right where you are." She looked at me, her mouth trembling. You did this." I grinned. "No, Karen, you did this. I just pressed record." As the sheriff began questioning the driver, Karen's carefully constructed facade cracked like cheap glass. I didn't know the half of it yet, but that tow truck wasn't just unlicensed. The plates were stolen, and the man driving it, he wasn't a tow driver at all. He was something much worse. And Karen was about to learn that her obsession with control was about to control her all the way to county jail. You ever see someone go from bossy to busted in under 10 seconds? That was Karen right there, standing on my driveway, clutching her HOA binder like it could save her from handcuffs. The sheriff was already circling the tow truck, his radio crackling as he called in the plates. Meanwhile, I leaned against my old Ford, sipping the same coffee that had now turned into the drink of sweet justice. The tow driver was sweating bullets. "Look, man, I'm just doing what she told me," he blurted, pointing at Karen like a kid blaming his sibling for breaking mom's vase. Karen gasped, offended. "Excuse me, you work for me. You said you were licensed." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "So, you hired him yourself?" Karen froze. "Well, not technically. He was referred by a friend of a board member." "Board member," the sheriff repeated. "You mean the board that doesn't recognize you as president anymore?" Boom. That one hit harder than a tow hook to the bumper. You could practically hear the sound of her ego deflating. My neighbor Dan couldn't resist. "Hey, Sheriff," he called from across the street, still eating cereal. "Ask her about the HOA emergency fund she keeps in her garage safe." Karen spun around, screaming, "That's a donation box." The sheriff ignored her. He was focused on the tow truck now, jotting down numbers then frowning at his screen. Huh, he said. This VIN doesn't match the plates. The driver swallowed hard. I can explain. Please do, said the sheriff, crossing his arms. The guy sighed. Look, I just rent the truck. I don't know where the plates came from, okay? I get calls from people like her. He pointed again at Karen to make a quick $100 moving violations. I didn't know it was stolen. Karen's face twisted like she'd swallowed a lemon. Lies. He's making that up. Is he? The sheriff said, walking closer. Because the system says these plates were reported stolen from a tow yard in Clearwater last month. You could have heard a pin drop, except for my quiet, satisfied sip of coffee, Karen stuttered. That's impossible. I don't even know anyone in Clearwater. The sheriff turned his attention to me. Mr. Ryan, I assume this is your property and your vehicle. Yes, sir, I said, parked legally in my own driveway. Karen here seems to think that makes it community property. That earned a tiny smirk from the sheriff, right? Well, good thing you called us, because this right here, he gestured at the truck. This isn't a community issue. This is a criminal one. Karen's jaw dropped. Criminal? Me, officer. I was only enforcing the rules. The sheriff looked unimpressed. Ma'am, impersonating HOA authority and hiring an unlicensed tow operator with stolen plates is not enforcing rules. It's conspiracy to commit property theft. You could practically see her knees buckle. That's ridiculous. I'll have your badge for this. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. Good luck with that. You can tell it to the county judge. Meanwhile, the tow driver had completely surrendered. He slumped against the side of his rig, mumbling, Man, I knew this gig was bad news. The sheriff called backup, and within minutes, another unit arrived. Flashing lights bathed Karen's face as the deputy took statements. She tried everything. Fake crying, fake fainting, even pretending she had a migraine. But none of it worked. I was just trying to clean up the neighborhood, she sobbed dramatically. People like him bring down property values. The deputy deadpanned. Ma'am, the only thing bringing down property values right now is the sight of you yelling in pajamas next to a stolen tow truck. I couldn't help it. I laughed out loud, and I wasn't alone. Neighbors had gathered now, phones out, filming the whole circus. Someone even shouted, "Smile," for Facebook Live. Karen, she screamed, you're all going to regret this. Oh, I'm sure, I said. But for now, I'm pretty happy. Then the sheriff's radio crackled again. A voice said, confirming tow license number provided does not exist in state registry. Possible forgery involved. The sheriff turned to Karen. Ma'am, where did you get this license number? She blinked rapidly, then pointed at her purse. It's in there. I printed it from the HOA website. Which page? The sheriff asked. The one with the towing guidelines, she barked. The deputy opened her folder and pulled out a sheet of paper, a blurry PDF that looked like it had been made on Microsoft Paint. At the bottom, it said, approved by HOA Enforcement Office, except the font was Comic Sans. The sheriff's lips twitched like he was fighting back a laugh. Ma'am, he said, this isn't an official license. This is a fake form. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. It's not fake. It's customized. Customized, he repeated. You mean forged? One, I prefer personalized. That was it. Even the deputy chuckled. The sheriff shook his head. All right, that's enough. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us for questioning. Karen gasped. You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA president. Not anymore, said a familiar voice. It was Dan holding up his phone. Just got off a call with the real HOA board. They said she was officially removed 2 months ago. Karen's jaw dropped so wide I thought it might unhinge. You can't. But before she could finish, the sheriff gestured toward the cruiser. Let's go, ma'am. You're being detained for further investigation. She tried to argue. Of course, you're making a huge mistake. The sheriff just replied, that's what everyone says right before we find the rest of the evidence. And as they guided her toward the car, she turned to me one last time. You think this is over, Ryan? You'll regret embarrassing me. I smiled and waved. Karen, I've regretted living near you for 3 years. This is the first time I've actually enjoyed it. The sheriff grinned as he closed the cruiser door. Sir, we'll file a report and keep you updated. And nice truck, by the way. Thanks, I said. She's family. The sirens faded as they drove off, and for a moment peace returned to my driveway. But as I looked at the abandoned tow truck, a strange thought crossed my mind. If Karen went that far just to tow my truck, what else had she been doing with fake licenses? I was about to find out, because when the sheriff called me back the next morning, he said something that made my jaw drop. And whatever Karen had been hiding, it was about to blow this whole HOA apart. The next morning, I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. The caller ID said County Sheriff's Office. I figured it was just paperwork, maybe a statement or insurance thing. But the sheriff's first words made me nearly choke on my toast. Mr. Ryan, he said, you're not going to believe what we found in that tow truck. Oh, I believed. I just wasn't ready for how much worse it was. Apparently, when the deputies impounded the truck, they discovered a whole folder of fake HOA towing notices, all with forged signatures, fake case numbers, and bogus legal stamps. The kicker, every single one had Karen's handwriting. Seems your HOA neighbor's been running her own little towing operation, the sheriff said dryly. We found payment receipts to Venmo, Cash App, even a few checks written directly to her. Wait, I said, blinking. She was getting paid to tow people's cars. Not just cars, he said. Boats, RVs, trailers, even bicycles, apparently. I swear, I nearly spit my coffee across the kitchen. Karen had built herself a mini towing empire without a license, without permission, and without a brain cell of common sense. By noon, it was all over the neighborhood. Someone had leaked the police report on the community Facebook page, and it spread faster than HOA gossip at a barbecue. There she was, Karen Henderson, former self-appointed HOA president, facing charges for fraud, impersonation, and conspiracy. The comment section, pure gold. Guess she finally got towed herself. Wonder if she charged herself a removal fee. Plot twist. Her next meetings in county jail. Even Dan made memes about it. One showed her photo with the caption, Tow Queen, repossessing rights since never. By the afternoon, a local news van showed up at the cul-de-sac. I could see the reporter rehearsing lines like it was a live drama special. Suburban HOA scandal rocks quiet community, she said into the mic. Residents shocked to learn that their neighbor allegedly forged documents and used a stolen tow truck to target homeowners she personally disliked. That last part hit me hard because it was true. The sheriff later told me Karen had a literal list, a hit list of problem properties. Anyone who annoyed her, parked a little crooked, had mismatched curtains, or played country music too loud was on that list. And at the very top of it, me. She even labeled it the red zone. Apparently, she planned to clean up the neighborhood one driveway at a time. What she didn't plan on was the county sheriff becoming her biggest speed bump. Later that week, I got invited to the emergency HOA meeting. The real HOA president, a calm woman named Lisa, stood at the front holding a stack of paperwork. "As you all know," she said, "our former member acted completely without authorization. The HOA never approved any towing citations or fake documents. We're cooperating with the sheriff's investigation fully." Someone in the back shouted. "So, does that mean we can finally park our trucks without her stalking us with a camera?" Lisa smiled politely. "Yes, and we'll also be reviewing all HOA policies to prevent future cameras." The room erupted in laughter. It was the first HOA meeting I'd ever seen people enjoy. After the meeting, I caught the sheriff outside. He looked tired but amused. "You started quite the chain reaction, Ryan," he said. "We ran through Karen's phone records. Turns out she'd been posing as an enforcement officer in 2 other communities." I blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope," he said. "She'd print out fake HOA IDs, slap on a blazer, and charge compliance fees." "So, she basically ran a fake government?" I asked. He said, "The county prosecutor is already building a case. She's looking at multiple felonies: fraud, identity theft, unauthorized use of state insignia. Not to mention the stolen plates." I had to laugh. "She tried to run a neighborhood dictatorship and ended up on a wanted list." The sheriff grinned. "Karma's got 4-wheel drive, I guess." A few weeks later, I got the final update. Karen pleaded guilty. Turns out, once she realized how much evidence there was, video recordings, witnesses, fake forms, she folded faster than a lawn chair at a yard sale. She agreed to restitution for all the towing victims and was banned from any HOA-related activity for life. That night, Dan came over with a 6-pack. We sat on the tailgate of my old Ford, watching the sunset, the same driveway that started it all. "So," he said, cracking open a beer, "you think she'll write me from jail?" "Only if it's a complaint about your grass length," I said. We both laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from months of stress finally being worth it. I looked at my truck, and still sitting proudly in its rightful spot, not an inch moved. The tow marks were gone, but the memory of that chaotic morning wasn't. It was a reminder that sometimes justice doesn't just show up in a courtroom. Sometimes it rolls up in a sheriff's SUV, right when you need it most. Before heading inside, I noticed something shining near the curb. It was a broken piece of Karen's old clipboard, the same one she used to slap fake warnings on everyone's doors. I picked it up, smiled, and tossed it into the trash. "Good riddance, Madame President." And just when I thought it was all over, my phone buzzed again. It was the sheriff with one last message. "Ryan, you'll never believe it. We found another stolen tow truck behind her cousin's house." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone because, of course, Karen wasn't done yet. But this time, at least, she wouldn't be knocking on my door. She'd be too busy explaining her customized paperwork to a real judge. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Every single subscription motivates me to bring you even more exciting and dramatic HOA stories. And don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. I'll see you in the next story where justice gets even more satisfying.